The biggest name.
You're locked into JJ and Alex. With the insight and analysis on the teams you can't live without. Presented by G2G Bars. This is 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Welcome back, everybody. It's another edition of JJ and Alex. 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Alex Kirry, Jeremiah Jensen, who's getting situated at his hotel in Dallas currently. He'll be back on the program here with us in just a moment. This is how we do it. We do shows while we're checking into hotels, while we're walking into airports. I don't care where it is. We will do the show live from there. And I said, hey, we're not going to need you for the next few minutes, JJ, because we're going to lean on Chandler Holt. You know Chandler because he does a ton of write-ups on KSLSports.com. If it's Jazz-related, he and Ben Anderson are all over it when it comes to that website. And then on top of it, Jazz Notes is the podcast that they host together. Our program is brought to you by G2G Bars, all natural ingredients and no preservatives. Make the G2G Bar the perfect protein bar. Give it a shot today. Costco, Holiday Oil, Maverick, Associated Foods. But let's get to Chandler and let's chat some Utah Jazz, because the question is, what on earth is going on in Utah? As always, so let's jump in right here with the cut.
It's time for the biggest story of the day. This is what made the cut with JJ and Alex on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
And, of course, the cut brought to you by an incredible selection of Kia, Subaru, Chevy, Jeep, Dodge, or Ram. It's the Doug Smith family of dealerships in American Fork, Spanish Fork, and in Linden. Chandler Holt joins me right here, fresh off of you guys recording your Jazz Notes podcast, which people can go over to their podcasting platform of choice and take a listen to. Chandler, first of all, welcome to the program, man.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
All right. So you and Ben had the chance to hey, listen, at least it wasn't a 7-team trade that we had to try to break down, I guess. But at the same time, explain what the move was that happened today. We knew all the names that we knew that could have left this Jazz roster. John Collins was always toward the top of those names. After Jordan Clarkson and then Colin Sexton are leaving the team, and then John Collins, I thought maybe he was going to get there. He opted in, of course, on his last year of his player option, and so great. We knew there was something like this, but explain the trade, and then more importantly, explain what the heck is going on in Danny Ainge and Austin Ainge's minds.
So it was a 3-team trade. John Collins gets sent to the Los Angeles Clippers. The Clippers send Norman Powell, who had a great year last year, to the Miami Heat, and then the Jazz get back from the Heat Kevin Love, Kyle Anderson, and a 2027 second-round pick.
Yeah. Very valuable.
Yes. So, and the Jazz had just sent out 4 second-round picks, 3 to trade up to get Walter Clayton, and then 1 with Colin Sexton. So they get 1 back. Whoop-de-woo.
Good job. There you go.
Me and Ben just talked about this. I think the Jazz are going to buy out Kevin Love, $4 million. But
we're not going to see a Kevin Love jersey reveal press conference?
I doubt it.
Adam's a list of the guys to my Derrick Rose jersey that I've got in the pile. And
Russell Westbrook,
who is a 2-time Jazz man. Again, help me understand the business of this, because I think we're all looking at it, and our friend Tim Reynolds from the AP, who covers the NBA, sent out a tweet today that I think it encapsulates exactly the way we feel, I think, covering the team.
Yeah.
But also, I think fans feel this way too, where it's like, hey, I think there is a process. Yes. I trust that Danny Ainge, he told me there's a process. We trust the intelligence level of Danny Ainge. Nobody thinks that he's dumb. He's the smartest guy in the room typically. Add Austin Ainge to the mix, Justin Zanuck, of course. Those guys get together and they don't make dumb decisions. This is deliberate. And so what do Jazz fans get out of something like this, a move like this?
So I think it's kind of interesting, and it's a total. Even though the outcome may be the same when you're looking at wins and losses or similar to last year, I think it's going to be different in the fact that like Jordan Clarkson, Lauri Markkanen, even like Walker Kessler, John Collins, these guys played between like 40 and max 60 games last year, right? Like there was a lot of wonky injury reports where you see 9 names on there. And it's
fines
like,
for the team for not playing Lauri Markkanen.
Exactly. But this next year it's going to be like there's 9 guys who are 23 and under on the team. So it's like all of them are going to have opportunity. And then you still have the Yusuf Nurkic, Kyle Anderson, Lauri Markkanen, these older guys who can like slow the game down a little bit for these young guys who just want to go, you know? So it's gonna look a little bit differently, but Austin Ainge, one of the things he said in his first press conference is it's going to be more fun. And I think it will be more fun.
I was talking about the Tim Reynolds tweet, and I didn't finish my thought on that. What it was he basically was like, hey, I trust the process. I trust Danny Ainge. But at this point, I kind of want to know a little bit of what's going on. Like, maybe let me know a little bit of what the plan looks like. Because making that move, I mean, obviously, you're looking at I guess this just ultimately it facilitates a lot of young guys getting a lot of touches.
Yes, exactly.
And also, from a lot of young guys getting a lot of touches, you're probably not going to win a ton of basketball games.
Yeah, precisely that. And also, there's a couple other important things to note. One, if the Jazz kept all these veterans and they're like, okay, we're done with the wonky injury reports and we're just going to play everyone as much as we can, there's a chance the Jazz end up with a 9, 10 to 14 lottery pick again. And then in that case, it would go to OKC. And that's the worst thing that can happen.
Yeah, you don't want that.
But now it's you have all these young guys, you can get the best out of them, especially Ace Bailey and Walter Clayton Jr. They're going to have a lot of chance to put up a lot of shots and see all sorts of different looks from defenses, play 30 minutes a night. And I think that's going to be good for them. But also, I think it's important to note that Austin Ages, he's here now, right?
Yeah,
he is the shot caller, allegedly, from what everything has been coming out of the Jazz front office. So we don't know what he thinks about these young guys yet. They were all his dad's picks coming in. So
we know what he thinks about Ace Bailey and Walter Clayton Jr.
Yes, exactly.
And you go, okay, and John Tonje, right? And you go, all right, those are the guys that they got in this draft. They know exactly what they're getting with those guys. And the breakup with guys that you don't have affiliation with beforehand, like that, it probably actually makes it a little bit easier because then you go, I don't have this connection here. This wasn't my move.
Yes.
And so I don't have to take that ego hit, right, that some of these guys do. That really does play into some of these decisions, right?
Oh, absolutely. And I will say the three dominoes of Colin Sexton, Jordan Clarkson, and John Collins, one, I will say I think most likely case situation here is that the Jazz are mostly done. We may see some two-way contracts get signed and other stuff like that. But heading into the next trade deadline and maybe even next offseason, it'll be interesting to see if there are young guys that get traded. Because, like I said, other than Ace Bailey and Walter Clayton, of course.
So even this season, when the All-Star break / the trade deadline is about to hit, on a roster like this, anything can happen. But at the same time, you're kind of those. There's not a lot of movement after the year starts then. That's kind of nice to be able to know there's not going to be some weird chaos right before the season starts here. And for all the people who are like, okay, there were names in the free agency. There was big game to be had in the free agency pool. There was technically, but the reality is teams come to the table with big names. I know that it's easy for my son to go, dude, we should have gotten Giannis, dude. And I'm like, okay, well, I don't know. That's really, we should have gotten, right? That's not really how it works. But at the same time, have there been those opportunities, do you think? I know the Jazz have shopped people before. So not only are they not thinking about bringing other names in, but I think that shopping other people might be off the table, at least for a little bit, right?
Not necessarily off the table, but I think that the Jazz are okay, pat ourselves on the back. We got off of those guys who were going to take – there's a difference between John Collins, who's a 30-minute per game night, who's taken 30 minutes away from Kyle Filipowski, Taylor Hendricks, and these guys, compared to Kyle Anderson, who's going to be a 15-minute a night guy, but still have that veteran presence in the locker room. But yeah, I think that for now it's going to be calm waters for the Jazz. But like I said, going to the trade deadline, there's a chance Austin Ages this young guy and this young guy, I don't think they really fit with what I'm trying to do in the next couple of years. So let's see what they can get, right?
So all the people who thought that Giannis and Jaylen Brown were going to be in Jazz uniforms this next year, maybe pump the brakes a little bit because 2025, 2026 is not the year that the Jazz were looking to make their big move.
No, and also I think the each of the past 3 years where the Jazz, following the Donovan and Rudy trade, they sort of did some offloading at the trade deadline. Last year, it was Simone Fontecchio, for example. He played really good for the Jazz, and they're like, okay, you're shooting a little bit too good. Let's send you off to Detroit. So I don't think there will be much of that this year because, like I said, there's probably 9 23 and under guys who are going to be rotation players for the Jazz.
That's great, though, right? Honestly, and we got our first round of summer league, and then we get a game 2 tonight. We get to see the Grizzlies take on this young Jazz team. What were the best things you saw out of the first iteration of our first game in summer league up at the Huntsman Center? Now that went back to the historic venue that we've seen it at before.
So first thing, I'm gonna sound like a broken record. I've said this multiple places now, but take everything you see in summer league with a grain of salt. Steph Curry shot 32% in his summer league. Victor Wembanyama shot 2 for 13 in his first summer league game. It is not a tell-all story.
We were pretty quick to say Donovan Mitchell's not looking great. It took preseason games for us to go, you know what, he's looking okay.
Yeah,
We're gonna like
he's looking pretty good. Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so what are the best things about these guys suiting up? Bryce Sensabaugh had a good first outing. Everybody wanted to see what Ace Bailey was going to do.
Yes.
The athleticism's there. And then people were like, but he only had 8 points. And you're like, oh. But again, it's the who freaking cares part of the summer league.
Yes, exactly. I will say Ace Bailey had 7 rebounds. Everyone was like, oh, he's listed at 6'10 at Rutgers, came out, he's 6'7. Oh, that's kind of a red flag. But he I think it's a good sign that he plays 6'10".
He's long.
Yeah,
He's
exactly.
long.
And he's athletic. And he's like, even though he's skinny, he's not afraid to get down there. Like maybe we saw with Cody Williams. And then, like you said, Bryce Sensabaugh shot the lace off the rim. Another player, Isaiah Collier's had sort of a iffy game, which is kind of interesting because he was pretty good last year for the Jazz.
A little bit of spitfire in that game too.
Yes.
A little bit pissy. That's okay. I don't hate that.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely
who cares?
not.
What are the guys that maybe people are looking at and they go, all right, what are you getting out of who's getting the best out of this and who benefits the most from something like this? I was having this chat with our producer Alex before we were chatting about it. Was why is it that Keontae George maybe didn't get an invite? And I'm not saying like, oh, that kid needs to get the most minutes possible, but like we see sometimes these teams go, hey, we're going to send you over there. It's your third year, but we're going to send you over there anyway and like get your head around things a little bit. This isn't a diss on you, but I also feel like you have to babysit some of the feelings of these guys a little bit. And is there some of that there? Why aren't we seeing a guy even like Keontae George who still needs to develop a ton?
I will say I was sort of surprised that we saw Bryce Sensabaugh instead of Keontae.
Right.
Because Bryce Sensabaugh was, like, don't get me wrong, Bryce Sensabaugh is far from a perfect NBA player, but I would say he was more consistent at stages last year than Keontae was. Right? Like, he knows his role. I'm going to stand on the wing, I'm going to catch this ball, and I'm going to shoot it. Right? With Keontae, it's like, am I a point guard? Am I, like, going to be taking shots off the dribble? Am I a catch-and-shoot guy?
And the front office feels like they'd be more committed to the guy they picked 16th a couple of years ago versus Bryce Sensabaugh, who, again, I think that they looked at, what was he, 28th overall?
28th,
it's not that people are like looking at him and going, no, we're not going to develop you. But it's more like, hey, they're putting a lot on Keontae George's shoulders.
Yeah. Like I said, I would have thought nothing of it if none of the third-year guys were there. But the fact that it was Bryce instead of Keontae was interesting to me. And with that said, I don't know if Bryce is going to play tonight. Like, I don't know. There's a chance they're like, okay, dude, you had 16 points in the first half. You're good. Right? You can watch these games now.
Yeah.
But yeah, I also think that Austin Ainge likes Keontae a lot because there was a lot of speculation like with drafting Walter Clayton. Like, there's a lot of redundancy with like Jordan Clarkson, Keontae George, and now Walter Clayton. But I think that They want to see what's going to happen with Keontae. I wouldn't be surprised if he starts more this next year than he did last year. As you know, last year he sort of filled a sixth-man sort of role for the Jazz. But yeah, I think Keontae and Bryce, all the third-year guys, might be done in Summer League. Maybe Bryce will come back for Vegas, but I think he might be done in Salt Lake. Who knows?
I think all those guys want to have like a little bit of a go in Vegas for a minute. And
exactly.
That's the cool, like posted on social media, we're staying at the Wynn and we're playing at the... So there's always a little bit of that. Taylor Hendricks, you brought up, and you mentioned his name, and then I thought, oh man, the Jazz are so good about keeping us updated on injuries. Not, but they do. But I do want to know, like, have we heard anything about where he is in his development and in coming back from that injury? Because now we're all starting to look around and go, what's the time frame look like here? We're talking about almost a year now.
So I think that we're not going to see him in Summer League, of course. We're not going to see him in preseason. I think he'll play in Game 1 for the Jazz of 82.
Okay.
But I also think even if he is like, oh, I feel great. Like I know that he's jumping. I know that he is like cleared for on-court activities in practice. But I think the Jazz are going to be like, even if he's ready to play 30 minutes, I think that they will be like, okay, let's put you out for 10. And then in a couple weeks, after a few 10 games, we'll put you at 15, right? Where they're going to sort of slowly push him back, even if he's ready, just because that was a terrible injury he went through.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously you want to pump the brakes on any kind of like trying to speed it up too much. And you don't have... That's the other benefit, I think, is when you have this young team, you want to have a lot of touches, and he's one of those young guys.
Yes.
But you also can't rush something like that. It was a massive break. It's a bad deal. And, you know, we saw the Pacers today say, Tyrese Halliburton's out for the year. Like, we're not going to mess around and be like, get him back for June, you know, or whatever, for May. Nobody wants to hear that. You want to get these guys right first, and half of that is the mental part of it too, and trying to get these guys back and feeling good about it. Chandler Holt joining us here on JJ and Alex. He's the host of Jazz Notes with Ben Anderson. You can see his byline also KSLSports.com. If it's Jazz related, it's usually going to have that on there. Give me the impact of the Kevin Durant trade, and first of all, how phone calls happen to make a 7-team trade. It's a record deal because it's a stupid number of teams involved in one trade. But that just shows the complexity of trying to get deals done and the lengths that some of these GMs will go to make sure that they can get some things done. I don't even know where to start on a trade like that.
Yeah, I don't either. When I saw that, I was wondering if they were all just on a Skype call together. Like Zoom call, just like each GM has their own little square. They're like trying to talk to one at a time.
Why are we here? Oh, no, you got a second-round pick. Like, oh, okay, that's fine. Thank you.
Yeah, no, it was absolutely crazy. And I do think that Houston is a lot better after the KD trade. Like last year, they had so many great individual pieces, and then it was like, we just need a go-to guy, and they got that, even though it is set 37, however many years old, Kevin Durant. And something that I thought was interesting is I think that the Rockets were similar to the Jazz in a way, where it's like the Jazz are lacking the star power, but if you look at their team right now, they have like guys who can create for other players, Isaiah Collier. You have guys who can create their own shot, and Keontae George, and you have a bunch of length and guys like Taylor Hendricks, now Ace Bailey, Cody Williams. It makes me wonder, like, I don't think the Jazz are far away in terms of they have the supporting cast. They just need a guy or two. You know what I mean? Like, if you look at the Oklahoma City Thunder and the Indiana Pacers, this wasn't like the Miami Heatles where you have three guys up top. It's like you can go 10 deep, and like we can like outplay you, outrun you, because we have an unlimited amount of guys.
And we talked about how the super team's kind of dead.
Yes.
And the way to do it is the Oklahoma City version, the Indiana Pacers version, where, and by the way, I mean, it was nice to be able to add an MVP along the way if you're Oklahoma City on accident. And Sam Presti's a genius. Yeah, he knew that this was going to happen. But I do wonder, like, if there is a timeline, and it's tough because we're watching the Mammoth be on a totally different path. And I know that's probably difficult for you guys who cover the Jazz to go, oh, great. Everybody's comparing like, well, hold on a minute. The Mammoth are in the playoffs or they're on the cusp. And it's like they've been very clear about we are in X year of the rebuild. Last year we're in the 4th year of a rebuild.
Yes.
This year they're like, we're not in the rebuild anymore. Is there a real like blueprint of a rebuild anymore? I think that people see Detroit and they see how many games that they improved on. Orlando's a team that's on the rise. Houston obviously made a massive turnaround. And I think people look and go, why can't we have that? Right? Yes. That kind of a vibe. What's the reality of like a blueprint of, and is there a standardized like, hey, we're in year X of a rebuild?
Yeah, I think it's hard because you look at OKC and they basically had like what, 1 or 2 like actual like losing seasons, and then they get Jalen Williams, trade for Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, draft Chet Holmgren. But then you look at Detroit, who was in the lottery for what, like 35 years in a row,
right? And they're the worst team. They don't get the first pick, and they lose out on that. And again, we see the similarities with the Jazz, but they also, with Cade Cunningham and with this young group they put together, I mean, how many games did they go? The biggest flip that they were the biggest flip that I've seen in a long time. It was like 17. How many? I don't remember how many games they won the year before, but they improved on it by like plus 45 or something like that.
Yeah,
it's bonkers.
A crazy jump. But I think that the thing to point out there is that they have Cade Cunningham. They have a 25 point per game level all-star, bona fide all-star, exactly. And I think that the Jazz are still looking for that. Like, you need that in order to like say, okay, let's go like focus on winning a title right now. Right now, the Jazz are focusing on building their roster, right? And I think that finally, I'm not saying that Ace Bailey is going to be a 25 point per game guy, but he has the tools to be that. Like, I think this is the first time in a while the Jazz are like, hey, we have a guy who could be like an all-star. We have a guy who could be an all-NBA level guy. And then, of course, with trading all of these veterans, you're already looking on to the next draft as well.
So when you see these other teams that are making these moves, and you see the Jazz who are being deliberate about how they want to be able to bring the right guys in. They want to have Jazz DNA, all those things, right? The Ace Bailey move is looked at like the Jazz won that. I mean, why is there still this feeling of like, oh man, this team's going to be bad for a while when it feels like they won the draft when they won draft night, which is the number one thing for them. That's how they're going to build a team.
Yes.
I mean, obviously, making trades is another option to be able to do it, but free agency's out, and to me, it looks like they've made some of these good moves. But what do you like about Ace Bailey so far? I know you said the rebounding number, but he's on the court and he's in there, and that whole business about his agent and his family and all those things, and all that noise seems to have gone away already.
Yes, I like his shot making ability. Like, that's the main thing that, like, if you watched 10 games of Ace Bailey at Rutgers, that'll be the thing that stuck out to you. But also, I think that he just has the tools for everything else. Like, the passing is something that hasn't really shown itself a lot, but he believes he's a good passer. And if that's something he's willing to do, like, you're already a step better than some players who aren't willing to do it at the very minimum. The rebounding, which I already pointed out. And then also, right now he's a good defensive playmaker. Like you saw in his first game, he had that game where he sort of let the dude get by him, and then it was like his little brother just jumped up and swatted it off the backboard.
Off the backboard, that's nice.
And then I think he has the tools to eventually be a good on-ball defender. But that's the thing is, I think even if he was taken with the 3rd pick, I think Ace Bailey was the most raw of the top 5 picks in the last year's draft. So he's like, in a way, he is a project. He has a lot of talent, but he's a project. So it's just like, can the Jazz unlock that? But the good thing, and I have said this since the Jazz took him, and even before, I think the Jazz were the best case scenario for him regarding basketball fit. Like, he's going to have like almost the ultimate green light to do whatever he really wants to do. I think you should.
Next time there's that Zoom call, or maybe even a media scrum in person, you should say, You looked at it as kind of a project. You should bring that up in the first thing. Be like, yeah. All right, before we let you go, we don't talk that much about Lauri Markkanen, who's been this like kind of shadowy figure in the background of all this thing, right? Lauri, obviously, the biggest thing is they locked him up. You know, they got the max deal for him, and they're feeling pretty good about that. Where is he in? Because you do all. If there's a version of a superstar this team has, it's him.
Yes.
How's he feeling about this process and where they're at in all this? Because you still have to babysit a little bit of the feelings of what your best player has.
Yes. I will say, if you're in the NBA and you are like 27, like prime age, you want to win basketball games, of course, right? But with that said, like there's no question that Lauri loves Utah, right? Like he wouldn't have signed that $40+ million contract that locks him up, like you said, if he didn't like it here. So I think that he's aligned with what the front office is doing, right? Like if he became trade eligible as soon as the last season ended. So if he didn't like what was happening, he probably would have demanded a trade.
Yeah.
Like even if he isn't one of these guys that you would think would do that, if he was really that adamant about not wanting to be a part of it, then that would have happened. And I think that, like I said, I think that him and then these other veterans that they brought in, Kyle Anderson, Yusuf Nurkic, I think they will bring something to this Jazz roster that like won't be seen necessarily by Jazz fans. There is something there when you have veterans that can be like, hey, that was a bad shot, don't do that again.
Right.
You know, just things like that. But yeah, I think that there should be zero questions about Lauri in the short term, but when you're looking on to like next offseason and a little bit further than that, it's sort of the thing like, okay, Lauri's almost 10 years older than every other person on our roster.
That's
so,
that's
might,
a stark contrast.
Yes, exactly. So might be some questions in the future, but I think in the short term, almost a 0% chance he's going anywhere.
What's year 4 bring for Walker Kessler?
That's a great question. I don't know. I think that I said this in an interview on his own a couple weeks ago. I think that he is the most likely of the Jazz's young core to be here when they're winning again. Like I think that they love him. And there's clearly teams like the Lakers who have been interested in him for years and years and years. But I don't know. I don't see them doing much with Walker.
Okay. All right. Chandler Holt. You can hear him on the Jazz Notes podcast with Ben Anderson. They just uploaded an episode today where they break down all of this and much, much more in a very much more deep level for the rest of you to nerd out on and to convince yourself in every direction possible for this Utah Jazz team coming up. Chandler, thanks for hanging out today, man. We appreciate it.
Of course.
All right, we'll take a break here. We'll come back. We've got much more to go around the corner. Stay right here with us. 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Your home for the best coverage of the Jazz, Utes, and Cougars is right here on The Zone. This is JJ and Alex, presented by G2G Bars on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Welcome back, JJ and Alex, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Live in Frisco, Texas is Jeremiah. I'm here in Salt Lake, of course, about to jump onto a plane myself so we can all get down there and be putting together the best coverage of Big 12 Media Days that you're going to get anywhere. Across these 2 days, you're going to get the best coverage for Utah and BYU all together. All of our shows going to be going live from down there. Let me see here. Who's going to be live with us across the day? I think PK, Hans and I, and you, JJ, are all down there. You're down there, and we're doing your TV duties as well, on top of all the guests we're going to be having. So we've got you covered both days. We've got it figured out for both days. You can nominate the youth sports volunteer that you know. We're going to do this even if it is a Big 12 Media Day week this week for the Hercules Hero of the Week Award. Submit that nomination, KSLSports.com/contest. That's KSLSports.com/contest. You can listen every Thursday, and then we read those winners off, and we can celebrate the efforts of those volunteers, and you get them a prize, courtesy of the folks at Hercules First Federal Credit Union and Beehive Meals. Okay. I did want to mention before we get to our media polls next hour, JJ, the interesting thing about this year's Big 12 preseason poll that was announced, I got an email from BYU's media department, and I thought, oh, interesting, because it was kind of a cutoff, subject. I was like, oh, okay, yeah. So it looks like you're going to get Will Farron and then at least Chase Roberts. Those are going to be the guys. But who else? I'm going to click on this email and see who else is on the list for BYU for possible preseason. Surely a guy like Jack Kelly will get some kind of a nod. Isaiah Glasker, can't overlook that guy. Nobody on defense for BYU gets a nod, JJ, when it comes to the preseason outlook here. Devin Dampier was named as the newcomer of the year preseason nominee for the Big 12. And then you have, let me see here, Spencer Fano. Let me see here. Oh, and Spencer Fano and Caleb Lomu. And then Devin Dampier is the offensive preseason newcomer of the year, not player of the year or anything. So no Smith Snowden, no Lander Barton. Those are guys who, by the way, and Spencer Fano and Devin Dampier are going to all be at Big 12 Media Days this week. Who are you more shocked by not getting on this list? Or did somebody, or is this about right? Because it's also about the guys who made the list. Lots of really good talent in this conference, but I was surprised that you're not even seeing from the Utah side of things a couple more defenders, 0 defenders, by the way, 2 offensive tackles. And then for BYU, Chase Roberts and your kicker, those are the only nods you get in the preseason. Shocked by any of that?
A little bit, yeah, because I think that BYU has one of the best defenses in the league. I think Utah has one of the best defenses in the league. What teams, let's go through them, Alex. Which team in the Big 12 has a better defense than BYU? I don't see one. Which team in the league has a better defense than Utah? I don't see one. So how is the why is the preseason all Big 12 team on defense consist of players that do not play at BYU or Utah? I think that's a little bit surprising. I think Keanu Tanavasa is probably like a 2nd or 3rd round NFL draft pick.
Yeah, pretty shocked. I mean, I guess this is like the 4th year in a row that Dante Corleone got the nod from Cincinnati. Some of these guys are super talented, but again, Tanavasa was a guy that they were talking about obviously at the end of last year and how big of a deal he was going to be, and he goes to BYU, of course, in the offseason, and yeah, I was shocked. Maybe it's because we're so entrenched in the names that we already know here locally. I think it shows the type of year last year that Utah had, which was not that those guys aren't good. It's that it was such a forgettable year that you forget about guys. And in BYU's case, I think people go back to, oh, BYU had a great year last year. They might not this year, and their quarterback's gone. And you know what I mean? Like you go back to the same old, like, yeah, this is a reason I'm not going to throw a vote that way because I don't really know who this Jack Kelly guy is. I don't really know who Isaiah Glasker is. And I thought that those guys did enough to at least get a look from those, but maybe it's because the talent at linebacker and defensive line are too much to be able to name Lander Barton, or I was shocked Smith Snowden was named wasn't
that's
up
the
there
one
either.
For me for Utah. Smith Snowden had a really good year last year. A lot of hype with him. Surprised he didn't make the list, but the truth is there's 16 teams in the league, Alex. And while you might have the best unit, if you go around the league, you might find a better individual player at a specific position. So I get it. It's tough to pick that. Just like it's tough in this league to pick the winner of the league. Doing a preseason poll last year turned out to be really difficult, and we all got it wrong. And so there wasn't even a preseason media rankings this year because of it. And again, it looks like it's going to be tough to pick that out. So yeah, there's a lot of choices. There's 16 teams. There's a lot of good players in the league. A lot of guys that are going to play in the NFL. I guess the all conference team that really matters is the one that they pick in December.
Yeah,
so we'll see how many
sure.
Utes and Cougars are on that list. But I was surprised to see so little Utes and Cougars on the list. Although Lomu and Spencer Fano are no brainers.
Yeah,
Will Ferrell's no brainer. And good for those guys that got that recognition. But I felt like there should have been at least 1 or 2 more for each.
Well,
team.
not even Kingston, who was Parker Kingston, who got all sorts of preseason All-American nods from different publications. Not the punt returner, kick returner specialist that they had named on this list either. Now, again,
they gave it to Josh Cameron of Baylor,
which I think who had also beaten out for the first team last year, even though wasn't it? I want to say Lassiter wasn't even was he an honorable mention?
Keelan Marion was an
Keelan Marion.
All-American, and he wasn't the first team.
No,
Big 12,
I think he was even an honorable mention. You remember, like there were 2 guys they put ahead of him. It's weird. But again, if you're hanging your hat on specialists too to get on your all Big 12 preseason conference team, then that's not a good look either. Just because I think that doesn't mean necessarily that you've got a balanced situation there. I wonder though, because I see all these things and I wondered who's going to feel slighted. And if you're BYU, if you're Jay Hill, you think his linebackers don't see that? Of course they do. You think that Lander Barton doesn't go, I got more hype as a sophomore and a freshman maybe than I'm getting in the Pac-12 than I'm getting in the Big 12? Like that probably pisses him off. I hope it does because I mean, it's easy to look at BYU and go, they don't have a quarterback. I mean, that's your biggest problem, right? And that's going to be the thing I think that tumbles BYU down the media polls when we put them together coming up next hour. But I do think that that is obviously a huge deal. And again, if you go off of anything that these guys have done previously, no reason why there shouldn't be a handful of guys that could be in that. But it's about where you are in December. Exactly. I think it's exactly what you were saying, that it needs to be the focus for these guys to jump in. Preseason polls don't really matter, but it does matter in the sense that I can't believe sometimes that the publicity of some of these other teams. I mean, you got Cincinnati, UCF, and West Virginia who have like 3 or 4 guys apiece, across there, or 2 or 3 guys apiece, and you're looking at BYU and Utah that are kind of barely scraping the barrel here. And I also think it's a weird thing to have Devin Dampier be your preseason offensive newcomer of the year on that preseason list, and yet in so many people they're voting him like the 11th or 12th best quarterback in the conference. Well, which one is it? I don't really get it.
Right. Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. I understand Utah was 5-7 last year, so if they're out of people's mind, I get it. I think Kyle Whittingham likes it that way, and I think this is where Kyle's most comfortable, and Morgan Scalley's most comfortable, where that program's most comfortable is a little bit of chip on their shoulder. We're overlooked. Nobody thinks we're the best. This is where Utah wants to be, and I think BYU is going to embrace that a little bit too, because I think that BYU had some success last year, and coming into the season, they were feeling some hype until the Jake Retzloff situation emerged, and now people are looking down on them a little bit again. So I think this could play in the hands of both BYU and Utah. I think being overlooked, I think being underestimated is good for both programs. And it'll give those coaches and the players the motivation they need to take things up a notch.
All right, we're going to take another break here. When we come back, got a couple things going on here. We've got, oh my goodness, what even part of the show are we on at this point? I'm like, we're all over the place, man. Oh, I got you covered. We got our Sucks to Be You coming up. Not just the people who were shorted on the Major League Baseball, in Major League Baseball's All-Star game, but also just the people who get shorted. One of the worst stories at Wimbledon so far this year, an upset in the making, and then suddenly it wasn't. So we'll have that for you coming up in just a little bit. Stay right here with us. More to go. 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Before I get out there, I want to mention that Hans and Scotty are going to be out at RGS Exteriors on Thursday when we get back from Media Days from noon to 3. 4235 Farm Road in West Jordan. More to go. 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Basking in the sports misfortune of others to help make you feel just a little bit better about yourself. As JJ and Alex present,
Yes, we got beat. We got beat badly.
It Sucks to Be You.
Welcome back, JJ and Alex, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. It doesn't suck to be you, but for others it sucks. And some of those guys are MLB All-Star snubs, specifically Juan Soto. The Mets star signed that big, huge contract in the offseason, left the Yankees, and got overlooked when it came to All-Star selection. He is not on the All-Star team. It also sucks to be Gregor Dimitrov in tennis at the Wimbledon. Jannik Sinner was down 2-0 in the round of 16 to Dimitrov, but then Dimitrov hurts his pectoral muscle and has to pull out of the tourney, so Sinner got a free pass to the quarters. That is brutal. Not a good way to go out of the Wimbledon, but for Sinner, who's one of the best tennis players in the country, or in the world, actually, he'll take that for sure. Sucks to be the Pacers. Yeah, Tyrese Halliburton, the Pacers. It was confirmed. We probably knew this was coming. Not a surprise here, but it has been confirmed that he won't play next season. So the Pacers will be without Tyrese Halliburton. It's going to be very interesting to see what direction the Pacers go in. They haven't made any significant moves in the offseason. They lost their center. And they're certainly not the team they were last year that made it to the finals. I'm very curious to see what they do for the rest of the offseason, how competitive they're going to be next season. But that's tough to go from one game away from your first NBA championship to not even sure if you can make the playoffs next year without those missing pieces. So we'll see what the Pacers do.
Well, and JJ, I think you need to make some moves because this is a team that was in the NBA Finals, and obviously losing Tyrese is a big loss, man. But losing Turner, I think, is just even as big as a
Yeah,
loss.
Miles Turner's a huge loss
and
for sure.
So losing him, not having Tyrese basically all season with that injury, it's going to be they need to make some moves to try to continue to be a successful team in the East.
Well, they're on the clock. It's the off season. Everybody else is busy. Everyone else has gotten started. But to be honest, Alex, I'm not sure what they can do. They were all in on that roster, and for good reason. I think it's essentially they're just going to have to take a mulligan year and try to run it back again when Tyrese Halliburton is healthy, and hopefully for them figure out their center situation. I know they made a deal. I think they got the Huff from who was it? He played for the Memphis Grizzlies. I think they made a trade for him, somewhat of a replacement, but obviously not to the level of Miles Turner. So we'll see how the Pacers respond to all that adversity. Speaking of adversity, the WNBA referees keep getting hammered by players in the league. This time it's Angel Reese. She called out the league's officials saying it has to be fixed, and she's tired of this bleep. Well, if Angel's mad, you better do something, WNBA, because you've got a refereeing problem. And look, Alex, I'll be honest. If the league wants better officiating and they want to solve this problem, they're going to have to actually pay the referees. They're going to have to make them full-time. Look, if you want to be a big league and you want to be a big name, you're going to have to make some changes here. And Caitlin Clark's elevating that league, and some of these other younger players are elevating that league. You've got to bring everything else along with it, or people are going to get frustrated with the product. And right now there is some frustration with some of those inconsistencies.
I guess maybe one of the positives that you can see out of all this is the fact that we're here talking about the WNBA because people are upset about the refereeing. So maybe the WNBA is fine with the way things are, but no, you're right, JJ. They got to start paying those referees, and they got to start doing something to improve the product, because it's not a good look when week in, week out you have your star players like Caitlin Clark and like Angel Reese coming out and saying, hey, the refereeing, it's not good. We need to fix it.
Yeah, it took us 30 years to realize that the WNBA officials suck. So I guess it's good to the league that we're finally noticing, as you said. It sucks to be USA Soccer. Not as much as we thought it might suck earlier in the tournament when they were, I don't know. I want to get your take here, Alex. You're a soccer guy. You follow this really closely. And I kind of got into it as well in the Gold Cup. They were playing really well. Diego Luna, obviously, with the local interest, playing really well. I thought they represented well. I don't think there's any shame in losing to Mexico in a Gold Cup final. But I'm curious, somebody who's a hardcore fan, what do you think of the current state of USA Soccer? Did you see enough from Diego Luna and others in this tournament to feel good about 2026 when the World Cup comes to North America? Or are you frustrated with it?
No, I think that's one of the positives that you can actually take away from this tournament. I know it's a heartbreaking loss, and everybody wanted to win it, but with a new head coach, Mauricio Pochettino's, this is his first major tournament, and you had guys like Chris Richards, who scored in the game yesterday, and Diego Luna kind of break out and make a name for themselves in this tournament. I think that's a positive, and you gotta try to take that into the next batch of friendlies as well before you head into the actual World Cup. Young guys like Chris Richards and Diego Luna emerging as superstars, I think that kind of helps. That kind of helps you down the road. Negatively, obviously, you want to win the tournament. There was a lot of questions of whether U.S. was, a real team and how they're kind of, coming out tactically with a new head coach like Mauricio Pochettino to see if they can actually be contenders at the World Cup. That negatively, because you couldn't even get past a Mexico team that also wasn't coming into this tournament in their best form. However, I will say one of the positive things for the U.S., this is closer to your B and C team, so there is room for improvement once you bring in your actual stars like a Christian Pulisic.
But, of course, you're playing everyone's A team starting next. Was it June or July when the World Cup comes? I can't remember the exact date, but it's coming next summer to North America, so that's going to be fun. One final sucks to be you. It sucks to be a defensive player for BYU or Utah. Nobody from BYU or Utah on the defensive side of the ball received Big 12 All Conference honors preseason in the list that was published today. I think by the end of the year, there are going to be Utes and Cougars on that list, and perhaps that's more important than the preseason. But it might suck to be the rest of the Big 12 because both of these defenses are going to have a chip on their shoulder come this fall when the games are actually played.
Especially after what we saw from them last year. You have a BYU defense that's returning a vast majority of their star players. Plus, you add a Keanu Tanavasa into that mix. And then for Utah, you also bring back a lot of key guys like a Smith Snowden, like a Lander Barton, who I think both of those guys are poised to have big seasons. And so maybe it's a good thing that Utah and BYU aren't getting maybe the love that they deserve in the preseason. We here locally know what they can do and what they can bring, and they might surprise the rest of the Big 12 once the games are actually played. JJ,
they'll get a chance to do that coming up, and we cannot wait for it. We're here down at Big 12 Media Days. That's where I'm at. I'm here in Frisco, Texas. Alex Kirry is on his way here. We're going to have wall-to-wall Big 12 Media Day coverage starting early tomorrow morning on DJ and PK and all throughout the afternoon, all through JJ and Alex. So we look forward to bringing you that all day long on Tuesday and Wednesday. The Cougars will be here on Tuesday, the Utes on Wednesday. All right, we've got a giveaway before we go to a break. We do this every Monday. Call in right now at 801-575-ZONE. That's 801-575-ZONE. With the Chevy Strong Play of the Week. If you know what that play is, call that number right now, 801-575-ZONE, and you can win a $20 Amazon gift card with an impressive lineup of cars, trucks, and SUVs. It's no wonder that people are switching to Chevy. Rocky Mountain Chevy Dealers, America's fastest growing full-line brand. Rocky Mountain Chevy Dealers. All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, I'm live in Frisco, Texas. We're going to take a deep dive into the Big 12 quarterback rankings that one writer attempted to dive into. I'm sure he's getting a lot of hate mail. I'll go through that and share my thoughts on that. I'll also share my and Alex's preseason poll. Now, nobody did a Big 12 preseason poll for good reason. Everybody messed it up last year. But we're still going to take a stab at it this year. I also have some thoughts on the all-conference teams as well coming up next on JJ and Alex, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.